Welcome everyone to the .locker room where there's no scripts, just real talk about domains, digital identity, Web3, and what's happening in our space. Today we have a great episode. We're going to be recapping ICANN in Seville with a very special guest, Lillian Fosteris. And my name's Bailey Comyns. I'm the head of marketing for Orange Domains, the registry operator for .locker. With us, as always, is Don Ruiz, and I'm going to introduce Lillian. Lillian is the founder and principal of Fosteris Consulting. We met with her at ICANN. She's got some great insight, so we're thrilled to have her on today. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you.
Lillian and I go way back, by the way. We go back to my 2Cow days when Lillian was with Fairwinds.
Yeah.
Early in your Fairwinds.
Long time.
Yeah, so it's been a while. So thanks for joining us and looking forward to getting your insights on ICANN Seville.
Of course.
Lillian, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about, your transition from Fairwinds into your new consulting role and kind of how that came about?
Yeah.
We'd love to give you a little introduction.
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks. So as Don said, I've been around for a while. I started in the industry, I guess it's been 15 years now, started in 2011, kind of a little timely for what's going on now. This just right before the new application period, new utility application period started in 2012. So I was at Fairwinds. I basically was there for a long part of my career and left last year when I was leading up the company. And during that time, kind of worked with companies on everything. I would say anything domain related, but things like domain strategy and portfolio management, new gTLD applications, launching and operating both generic and brand TLDs, ICANN compliance. Again, it's time for change. And at the beginning of this year, started my own firm and basically just thought there was a need for practical senior level domain TLD advice, support that was tailored and wasn't this one size fits all approach. And then kind of the companies, like what I've been working on it's a lot of what I've been doing. A lot right now, obviously, is next round, managing existing TLDs and working with companies on kind of comprehensive domain strategy, portfolio management, or people that just need to understand what's going on in the space, what matters, and whatever. So it's kind of all that, trying to be practical, not, give good advice and be there for people. So that in a nutshell.
I mean, it's perfect timing, right? Perfect timing, like you said. And I joined a webinar a few weeks ago that you did, and I thought it was great. I know we talked about this a little bit over ICANN, but super insightful and some really just great questions on bringing new TLDs to market. I think you're really serving your niche there.
Thanks, Bailey. I think webinars or anything, it's always a little like, oh, nerve-wracking. Is anyone going to show up or ask questions? But yeah, no, it's great that people ask questions. And I think after all these years, it's kind of just in my head. So it's just easy to be like off the cuff, answer questions and not really have a script. So no, it's great. I probably will do one soon. So we'll let you guys know.
Oh yeah, we'll be there. Don't worry.
By the way, Lillian was very integral in the launch of .blog. We hired Fairwinds as our partner and worked tirelessly with Lillian in the early days and ongoing post-launch as well, especially from a policy perspective with the TLD. That was a lifetime ago for me, it seems like, but yeah.
Their 10-year birthday in Seville, so
exactly.
That's right.
For 10 years, yep.
Yeah, that was actually really great to see the whole blog team celebrate 10 years of success. Like, blog is, great TLD, Don. We'll give you your pat on the back. You guys did a great job.
It was a great team to work for and stuff, and happy to be, at least part of that early on with that group, and working for Automatic was always great. But now it's we're moving on through innovation and some new technologies and stuff, and .locker, and obviously with the next round, Lillian, and this is big part of your expertise for sure. Going into ICANN Seville was really interesting for us because as we kind of move further along in the process of the next round of TLDs, we have a solution, minting as a service solution, talking to registry operators or potential registry operators in the next round that are going to be applying for a Web3 TLD or Web3 focused TLD that needs to connect a Web2 to a Web3 domain names. We have a white label service around that. So we're getting a little bit more interest in the conversations around the Web3 kind of stuff, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit later. But we'd be interested to get your perspective on your key takeaways into ICANN Seville and how it progressed from the last ICANN into
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because it's a summer meeting. It's technically the shortest policy meeting in like ICANN schedule, but I always say it's depending on what's going on and where it is in some ways, it's, well attended, and Seville was well attended, I think, largely because good city, or, not all the cities are good, but,
it was
cities
a perfect
in the summer
city.
are, yeah, but also with the application period open, you're getting, you're having more people attend and be interested. I think compared to Mumbai and the contracted party summit in Manchester, there was, less ICANN sessions on the next round, but clearly the discussion, what everyone's talking about in like one-on-one, confidential meetings or just conversations, at receptions and in the hallways is like, who's applying, what are people doing, questions that have come up. And honestly, some people I think are still, especially that aren't at the conference, are still deciding whether or not they're going to apply, even though we're now less than 2 months away from, closing. But I think your point about kind of Web3, I think that there'll be a lot of applicants and money focused on those types of strings, right? Some of it's just kind of word of mouth and, but also and speculation. But I think what I kind of realized the past month or so, both at ICANN, just in other conversations, it's what I'm confident, I think now that we'll see is the big players in the space, the portfolio operators, they're applying again. We're seeing kind of what used to be, say, outside of this space, companies in the Web3 space, things, entities around AI. Private equity, again, not say traditional, when I think back to 2012, not like traditional domain space playing a part. I think those groups also will bring a lot of money into the industry, especially around acquiring certain strings. And then kind of, I think what didn't happen in 2012, and actually this morning I was trying to pick my brain to think if I could think of any, but I think there'll be more registrars that are applying actually for TLDs. And that, it's newer, but I kind of just in some conversations and, even some smaller registrars I've heard are applying, it seems, and that. So kind of that would be some more vertical integration in that. So it's definitely, because you're like, what's going to happen? I think we won't know, obviously, till reveal day in October, but definitely a lot of kind of murmurs and speculation. And, I think there will be some influx of like money in the space just because you'll have these new entities that are outside of the traditional domain space.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of see it the same way. And we've had several conversations at Seville around this as well. And the registrar piece is interesting that you brought up because we talked to a few registrars as a registry. Obviously, they want to know our take, and we're asking them what their plans are. And there are some who are looking at the next round. And my question was always why, like, what's your plans? And it seems like some of them want more control for one, and they want a different. They know their user base. They want more control. They get better margins. They can do much more with it if they have a TLD that kind of fits into their business model. And so I thought that was really interesting because, as a registry, it's hard sometimes to get registrars' attention because there's hundreds and hundreds of TLDs that are active in the marketplace. I mean, there's 1,600 or so, but actively in the marketplace that we kind of compete for shelf space against, and some of these large registrars, having registrars actually focusing on their own is going to make a very interesting conversations post-launch to see kind of where we fit in their business and needs and how we can kind of back into some of their audiences as well, because we think that we're pretty unique in our offering. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but it is different this year, especially or this time around, especially with you have to have a backup TLD now and so the whole application process is a little bit different as well. So we'll see how this kind of plays out. We're in a good spot, and I think that the industry itself is in a good spot where we're at, kind of moving forward and adding new choices and stuff. But I don't know. Somebody asked me while we were there what the over under is on on how many TLDs will be applied for, or how many TLDs will actually be kind of issued. And I'm lost. Some days I feel like it's going to be less than the first round. Some days I feel like it's going to be more than the first round. But I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I fluctuate. I think I came out of Seville thinking higher but before Mumbai back in March, I was like, I don't think so. I think, I don't know, I don't play the guessing game that much, but I'll also say, you mentioned, or I'm just like, we'll see, find out in October. Yeah, you mentioned about kind of the rules around like contention and alternate, like replacement strings and stuff. And I think that actually compared to last time, or like, I guess over a decade ago now, is that the people, especially that are invested, are in 2012, people are like, okay, let me just get the application in, pick my string, I apply, I'll deal with everything else, including withdrawing later. And now it's, what's my replacement string? Because there's, you want to pick a replacement string where you could actually have the option to use it, so that string can't be in contention. People are thinking about how do I try to resolve contention prior to reveal day when this blackout period happens. So there's, I think, a lot going on now, more than there was in people are more knowledgeable now, especially those that are been in this space. But there's also now all these kind of bigger questions, and you kind of know it better, but there's, new rules. So I think the people that are participating, it's not just, I need to get the application in, but like, what's my strategy, both on, say, replacement strings, and then also, do I try to navigate some of these, private market solutions to get more information, maybe try to figure out if I'm in contention and resolve it before ICANN's blackout period.
You mentioned that. You mentioned, especially with .brands, being more strategic in your webinar. And I think what you're saying is so true. They have to cast a much more strategic, smaller net than before. And some of the questions that were being asked were really interesting things about .brands, profiting off of their strings and stuff like that. And I think we've seen how .brands have shaken out over the past, 10 years. Who's used them, who hasn't, who still has, their string kind of just sitting in their back pocket. So strategy is definitely a big difference between last round and this round, a key difference on what people are doing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think people are there's also less fear. There's a number of companies that have also said explicitly, I'm not applying for new TLDs, or like, I'm not applying for new TLDs, or I have them, I'm not applying for more, because they've been comfortable making the conscious decision not to, right? And people being public, or in at least conversation, saying, I'm going to apply for new TLDs. So it's just a kind of, I think, a different perspective for most now compared to, I guess, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
That 14 years is key, though, right? I know we've talked to some groups that said they're going to apply, and my question was, okay, why? Again, I always ask that question, and they said, because we don't know when this is going to come around again. Yeah. Get it now and have it, and maybe even sit on it, because it may be another 14 or 15 years before another round comes out, if at all. So that uncertainty of when and if, I think, has been pushing other groups to say, let's just go get this now. At least we'll have it. Whether or not we'll figure out what we really want to do with it, but let's get it. So I've been hearing that as well.
That's a great point. I mean, the industry is moving fast. The landscape's moving fast. In our conversations at Seville, there were some really interesting use cases for TLDs, Web3 TLDs that people were bringing to us that we hadn't even really considered, authenticating for vacation rentals or insurance agents, things that were not necessarily on our radar. And then a recent announcement was, Don, you are in the technical study group for alternate naming systems. And, like I said, it's moving fast. We need these regulations, and people need to apply now because they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or when they're going to get this chance again. It's a little bit of a land rush in a way.
Yeah, I think, to touch on that technical study group, and the timing of it, obviously, is to get a report out prior to the application close, so that people will have some indication of, their direction or position of where ICANN is with connecting a domain name to some of these alternate groups. Now, this technical study group, we're not creating policy or anything. We're just going to create a report, and it'll be available for public comment. but it'll give, I think, a sense of where our, the ICANN community or this particular group and the recommendations moving forward for how we should be thinking about these connections between domain names and alternate groups, right? Because there's a few groups, and .locker included, out there today that are kind of have solutions in the marketplace or are looking to develop solutions in the marketplace. But the whole timing of this is really based on the next round and trying to get something out, because they know that, as Lillian mentioned, there's going to be quite a few TLDs that have a Web3 in particular as an alternate route. There's probably others, but on the Web3 side, that have that connection or want to create a solution or connection for a certain audience to the Web3 community. So yeah, we're excited about that. We just kicked off. There's supposed to be a in-person meeting, or there is an in-person meeting in Los Angeles this week. I unfortunately can't make it, so I'll be doing that one remotely. But we'll see how we get. We have the gas pedal down, and everybody is firmly committed to getting something, constructive together over the next few months.
Yeah, we know Web3 TLDs are a main bucket that will be in this application process. So like you said, much needed as we kind of cross that bridge.
Yeah, the area that really I find interesting, because I know Web3 quite well, and there's an intersection between Web3 and AI, but I'm curious, Lillian, your thoughts, and if you had any conversations, because AI, we talk about how the industry is changing so much. AI changes from day to day, it seems like, and you really got to keep on top of it. I think that, with the work that Identity Digital and GoDaddy and other groups, and there's independent groups I've had calls with as well around AI and standardizing AI and using DNS as an authoritative source and anchoring it to a domain name. Have you had any conversation, Lillian, or do you have any thoughts on where AI sits in the next round moving forward?
Yeah, I think there will be many with the string specifically. There's probably more than a handful of actual strings that have some AI relation. People say like .agent, for example, that will be very in-demand strings. I think in the kind of broader, if we're looking at the broader domain name industry, both on the registry, registrar, just in general, it's kind of figuring out, navigating what, like say domains, what's their role with AI now and all that. And I think kind of similar when we're talking about Web3 is that AI is now starting to creep in as a topic at, like, say, ICANN, at the actual official ICANN meetings. I think it was at CPS in Manchester in April. I think there was talk, but that, it was more collaborative discussions, like GoDaddy speaking about it. And they're starting to be a little bit more in ICANN, but it's always, I think, a little slow to kind of get to the main stage. I think I mentioned to both of you that I was at InterNetX hosted a summit in Berlin shortly after Seville. And, I think the theme was like metamorphosis, and it was how things are evolving. And I think on the business side, and more when you're getting a little bit outside of the strict policy ICANN structure, it's, this is obviously what business, technical people, business people are thinking about is, what does it mean? What is the use for domain names? What, how are we incorporating it into our business? And it seems there's still, limitations, but you can't be ignored and just in that way. So I don't think it's in the next 6 months the domain industry is going to radically change, just because it's also been a slower moving industry, I would say, especially in terms of innovation in some ways. But I think you'll see it in the reveal day. I think people are using AI to an extent on their new gTLD applications to digest ICANN policy. And I think businesses, especially some of the bigger players in the space, are really incorporating it into their business, but also different groups, figuring out how it works in terms of standards and things like that.
Yeah. I think Metamorphosis is a great way to describe what's happening right now. We're definitely thinking of domains, DNS, everything within our industry in a different scope than before, when it was just kind of website, email, domain name. Now we have agents, we have Web3, alternate naming systems, so many different things kind of converging at the same time alongside the applications. So it's definitely going to change the landscape. Like you said, maybe not in the next 6 months, but as time goes on, I think we'll see more and more of the differences.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. And we mentioned AI, and I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of talk about what we've been leaning into that as well with .locker and the connotation around locker and ownership and accessibility and having your own online locker. And obviously, a lot of these agents have to live somewhere, and how they kind of interact with Web3 in particular, if there's the micro payments on the back end and how they're transacting, and if they're using that form of ledger, then .locker kind of fits into that. But there's going to be many that fit into that. And there's going to be lots of groups that are kind of trying to position themselves into that space as well. So I think AI is coming fast and furious. I mean, I think we all use it in our daily professional lives. I use it in my personal life a little bit as well, but it's coming, and I love where the industry is at, kind of dealing with these things. And I think that there's a lot of smart people in the room, a lot smarter than me, who are going to figure out what this is all going to kind of look like. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time for us. But Lillian, I mean, you mentioned that you were you went to the InterNetX conference following the Seville conference. What was, the metamorphosis, obviously you talked about that theme, but are there any other main takeaways from that conference?
It's interesting for me since I'm kind of branching out a little bit more. So those kind of events, I kind of used to not have the bandwidth, or it wasn't kind of what I was doing. So I think this is probably more, I don't know if everyone, on a personal level, when you're in, and we're talking about that technical study group you're in, and when you're, I think, at these other events that are just more like business focused, people are, to me, just a little bit more open, and I get better insights in terms of what people are thinking, what people are doing. People are, I think, open to collaboration. So there was an array of topics a lot there, and I heard from people after being in the space for 15 years, you hear a lot from the same people. So, you know what they're going to say, their perspective. So just hearing from people that are in the space or tangential to the space, and kind of their perspective and how they see like domains moving forward. Because, even in my 15 years in the space, people are like, domains are going to be useless soon. And, people always will still need a domain name for something, whether it's, they're direct navigating or something else. So I think, at least, I don't think there was a big takeaway. I think, at least on my end, it was a great event. It was fun, but it also just hearing and meeting different people, and that people that are, I think, being innovative and being realistic about what's going on, and kind of the opportunities and also potential challenges ahead. So I think kind of candid discussions and all that, I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah, I actually like some of the smaller conferences as well, for that reason, because you can spend a little bit more time with people and it's a little bit more intimate. So I hear you on that point. But going to Berlin is never a bad thing either.
No, it's quick. It was quick, but it was good. And I had only been to Berlin once before, after actually the ICANN Hamburg meeting, and it was like, it was probably November, so it was nice that it was not as warm as Seville by any stretch, but it was like sunny, and you could walk around, went on a run and stuff. So yeah, no, and the events were nice, and it was, again, it was fun.
Yeah, lots of great posts on LinkedIn about that one too. Back to back, everyone went from like Nordic to Domain Days to Seville, and then over to the InterNetX event. So I think people are probably traveled out at least until Bali in the fall. Will you be in Bali? Would love to see you. I mean, I don't know if we're going, but we're gonna try.
I'm planning to be there. A little quiet time now, kind of always in the the Northern Hemisphere summer.
Yeah.
And then obviously a lot going on with the application period and immediate post application period, but kind of jump back into it when you kind of have the rush again before the holidays. So that will be this is a pretty big, for being in North America, big ICANN travel year, a few trips to Europe, India, Bali. So
yeah, we definitely have to scope out Bali. It's a long flight for me and Don coming from the East Coast of North America, but I would love to go. I'd love to see everyone there. And
yeah, it seems like this is going to be an important one. Just being the first ICANN post reveal day, and kind of leading into the release dates as well as the auctions. And I heard, Lillian, and this is my last point on this, but I heard that ICANN were allowing up to 5 years for auctions. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's like timelines. It's I think a lot of the information is being deduced also from the RFPs that ICANN has out for like auction providers and like contingent set resolution. So, it's similar kind of last time there was less ICANN auctions because people resolve contention privately. But like last time, I assume things will be drawn out extensively or for a long time. So yeah, I think there'll be this rush, kind of a little different from last time this year with like reveal day, the replacement string period where you can replace your string or have potentially the option. And that's 2 weeks, which is a pretty quick turnaround when you're talking about very, impactful decisions. And then what is it then? String confirmation day when you get the final list of strings. And then you start the process of objections, government's warnings on applications, public comments kind of starts that. So I think there'll be now through the end of the year, it'll be a big rush. And then I think there'll be some lulls before I think ICANN gets back into it. But yeah, I would be shocked, especially with a lot of strings likely in contention and also the prohibition on the private resolution that you have to go through the ICANN process. These things I could see dragging out. I think we're talking at least a few years.
Yeah, I can think of a couple that are already very hot strings that a lot of people are going after that may be stuck in that purgatory, so to speak, for a little bit.
Yeah, and things like objections, gap warnings will hold up applications. So even if your specific application's not held up, it can be held up if you're in contention or if there's string similarity putting you in contention. Right. So it'll it won't. I don't think it'll be quick.
It'll be an interesting one for sure. I mean, especially I wasn't around for the first round. I had just joined the industry after they started launching them to market. So I'm really interested to see how all of this kind of shakes out this time.
I can't help but think as you're talking, Lillian, anybody who is not working with you, who's applying in the next
Seriously?
needs to work with you. No, I mean,
Seriously.
everybody just think, you apply, you get it and stuff, and all the things and all the mechanisms and the processes behind the scenes and all the different things that could help, that could possibly delay or, if you're not aware of what's kind of going on, it's mind blowing to me because I've been in this industry for a long time and I've been through this process, but there's still so much that I need to learn that, we're not applying this round, but so it doesn't apply. But just hearing you speak about these things, it's impressive. You're
she knows her stuff.
On this is good. So we certainly wish you the best with the work that you're doing in any of the groups that you're working with. They're obviously in good hands and stuff, and we're looking forward to seeing you in Bali when we head that way. We'll be there in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely. We'll drop your contact information in the show notes. So if any, prospective applicants are out there, Lillian's got you. So we'll make sure that they have all the information they need to contact you and all that.
And thanks for having me. And it's always, in person and remotely great to catch up. And, we'll see you. We'll talk before, but we'll see you soon.
See you in just a few short months in Bali. Right, Don?
Yes, exactly. We'll be here before we know it.
Well, that's all we have for today. As always, you can find Orange Domains on LinkedIn, and then you can find us as .locker on Discord and X. And we'll see you next time in the .locker room. Bye, guys. Thank you.